Hey, friends and fans, welcome to today's episode of The Magic of Music. My name is John Lerack, and today we're going to start our discussion of musical intervals. So, what is a musical interval? Well, often we think of intervals as the time between two things that happen, right? But in music, we talk about intervals as the distance between two notes. So I can sing a note here and then I can go to here. That's an interval and it's called a fourth. Or I can go from here to here. That's an interval and it's called an octave. So how do we figure those things out? Well, the most basic interval that we start with is what's known as a half step. It's our smallest interval in Western music, and it's definitely the smallest interval that can be played on a piano or keyboard. Another name for a half step is called a minor second. And with this graphic here, you can see how they're often written. We can write it out as half step. We can write the words out minor second, or mostly as musicians, we abbreviate it with a lowercase m and a 2. And that tells us that lowercase always tells us that it's minor as opposed to major. Now, major and minor, what's the difference between that? Well, that could be quite a lengthy discussion. But for today's video, let's just describe major as something that sounds happy and something that sounds triumphant or proud. Something that might sound like this. Or even two notes together. Where something that minor sounds maybe sad or dissonant or less stable, something like this. All kinds of minor intervals in there. So the difference between major and minor for us is major sounds kind of happy and minor sounds kind of sad. Moving the video now to the piano keyboard so you can get a visual on some of this. So we're looking here, and if we take any note, we'll start here on middle C, which is where my hand is. And if we play that note, we call the first note we play number 1. So this is number 1 right here. This could be number 1, this could be number 1, but from wherever we start, so number 1 here, if we go to the very next key, it doesn't matter if it's down or if it's up, it's called a half step or a minor second. You can go from white key to black key to white key, or white key to white key. What you can't do for a minor second is go from black key to black key anywhere on the keyboard, because if you notice what happens in between, there's another white key. And by the definition, a half step is one key to the very next. So we call it 1, 2, or 1, 2. Again, we can start anywhere. We can start here, 1, 2. We can do 1, 2. That's a minor second or a half step. It sounds very sad and dissonant for us. Back in the old movie Psycho, you'd hear, that's a minor second. And it certainly didn't indicate that Norman Bates was coming into that shower with a bar of soap. So our next interval is the major second or the whole step. Well, let's take a look at that. We already know what a half step is, right? It's like this. It could be like this, one note to the very next. Well, let's be mathematicians for a while. And don't worry, I am terrible at math, so don't let that scare you. But I think most of us know that if we take one half and add another half, we have a whole. So the distance from one key to the next key with something in between it is a whole step or a major second. Now we can go here, 1, 2. We can go here, 1, 2. We can go 1, 2. We can't do this. Why not? Because there's two things in between. So we don't want that, but if we can go from any note to its next note with one key in between, it's called a whole step because it's comprised of two half steps. So you can see here in this graphic how we usually notate this. We can write it out and say whole step. We can write it completely out and say major second, but it's most commonly abbreviated with a capital M and a 2. So that's all great. If we have a piano keyboard, we can see where our hands are going. We can count. We can go 1, 2. But what if we're a singer? Everything's inside us, and we can't see what our vocal cords are doing to make that change. So one tool we use when we're training our ears to figure out intervals, to figure out the distance between two notes, is to find a song that we know really, really well and a prominent part of it that features that interval we have in mind. For instance, if we have this, or down here, sounds better down there, doesn't it? And we keep going. I just did this in another video, but what is that? It's the theme to Jaws. So anytime you hear, or even, because Jaws goes both directions, right? Down, up. We know that that's a half step. And when they're sounding together, they sound like that Psycho theme that I already showed you. That real clash. On the piano and Western music and Western tonality, we can't get any closer than that. We can't get any more serious and dire and fraught with tension as we can with that half step. So anytime you hear that, it's most likely a half step or a minor second. Now, what about the whole step? Well, you all know a whole step very well if you sing Happy Birthday. Let's see where my pitch is. Right there. So if we do Happy birthday. Those two notes from happy to birth are a whole step, and back to day is a whole step down. Happy birthday. So anytime you hear that, together they sound like this. I don't have a song off the top of my head to give you for that, but it's not quite as dissonant. You can tell it. Is it Psycho? No, this is Psycho. Hear the difference? Major, minor. Whole step, half step. Well, there's a lot more discussion to be had on intervals. We move on to minor and major thirds, to tritones, to perfect fourths, all kinds of stuff. And if that doesn't sound daunting to you, yay, you understand intervals. But if that does sound like, holy crap, what's all that mean? Don't worry, I'll cover it in another video, but we're not going to do it today because I really want you to be clear of just the two things we talked about. Major seconds and minor seconds, also known as whole steps and half steps. So that's it for today's episode of The Magic of Music. I hope you'll come back next time and see another episode when we unveil something entirely different about this realm of music that we all love so much. If you'd like this video, please give it a big thumbs up below and comment on it and subscribe to my page. If you haven't already, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram under John Lee Rack Music. You can get a lot of different content there that you won't necessarily get on the YouTube videos. As always, if you have a comment or something you would like me to cover in a future video or a question, comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you. In the meantime, thanks for watching.